Have you ever had a really great sales month and you still found yourself looking at your bank account wondering, where did all of the money go? I certainly have had that happen to me. And if you have experienced this in your business, you're definitely not alone. I think one of the biggest misconceptions that we have when we start a business is that more sales automatically mean we're building a healthier business. So we celebrate revenue. We post those revenue milestones. We talk about being a 6-figure business and a 7-figure business, but there's a number that gets talked about a whole lot less, and that is cash. Because you can have a business that's generating a lot of revenue and still be constantly stressed about money. You can have your biggest sales month ever and still worry about making payroll. And technically, you can be profitable and still not have enough cash available to take advantage of a new opportunity. And after more than 10 years of running my businesses, I've learned something that I wish I understood so much earlier. And that's revenue might make your business look successful, but cash flow determines whether your business can actually operate. So today we're talking about the truth about cash flow, not from the perspective of an accountant or a finance professor. We're talking about it from the perspective of me, a business owner who has had to make payroll, buy inventory, pay the rent, invest in marketing, hire new people, plan for the slow seasons, and figure out when it's okay to grow and not to. So my hope is that by the end of today's episode, you'll understand your business's money and cash flow a little different, because when you understand cash, you make much better decisions, and better decisions build better businesses. So here's a lesson I had to learn. I wish that I could tell you that I've always been really disciplined about cash flow, but I have not. There's absolutely been seasons in my business when sales looked good on paper, but cash flow still felt really tight. And retail teaches you this lesson very quickly because inventory is your cash. You might look around your store or warehouse and see racks of beautiful clothing or products, but financially what you're really looking at is money that's just sitting on the shelves. You paid for that inventory, but you haven't gotten that money back yet. And depending on the type of business you're running, you may have paid for that inventory months or even years before the customer has an opportunity to buy it. Now imagine you are preparing for fall, like I have been. You need to buy your fall inventory before fall arrives. But then you're thinking about holiday inventory during the fall. And meanwhile, payroll still happens every 2 weeks. Rent still happens on the first of the month. Insurance is due. Software subscriptions are hitting. Your credit card bill comes. You've got those marketing expenses that always continue. And maybe you're having a fantastic sales month, but that doesn't necessarily mean that suddenly you have a lot of extra money available, because some of today's cash is already committed to tomorrow's expenses. And that's one of the hardest mindset shifts to make as an entrepreneur. The money in your bank account isn't necessarily money that you can spend. And that brings us to one of the most important distinctions I want to make today. And that is that revenue isn't reality. So let's talk about 3 important words: revenue, profit, and cash flow. They're all related, but they're not the same thing. Revenue is simply the money your business generates from sales. Let's say your business does $100,000 in sales this month. That is super exciting. And you should be celebrating that. That's a huge milestone. But you didn't make $100,000, right? You generated $100,000 in sales. Those are 2 very different things. Maybe $40,000 of that represents the cost of the products that you sold. So cost of goods sold. And then you have payroll, you have your rent, credit card processing fees, shipping costs, insurance on your business, your marketing costs, maybe running ads, your software, utilities, and of course, taxes, and all the other expenses that are required to operate your business. So after paying all of those expenses, what left is much closer to your profit. But even then, profit doesn't equal cash sitting in your bank account, because timing matters. Maybe you just placed a $30,000 inventory order for next season, or maybe a customer hasn't paid an invoice yet. Maybe you have a large tax payment coming next month. Maybe you recently bought some equipment, or maybe you made a deposit on something you won't receive for another 90 days. This is where cash flow enters the picture. Cash flow is simply the movement of money into and out of your business. And one of the strangest things about entrepreneurship is that you can technically have a profitable business and still run out of cash. And that's why I want you to stop looking at revenue as the ultimate scorecard. Because yes, revenue matters and profit matters, but cash is what keeps your business alive. So here is why cash flow matters so much. It affects almost every decision that you make as a business owner. Can you hire someone? Can you place more inventory orders? Can you invest more in marketing? Can you open another location? Can you buy more equipment or replace equipment? Can you launch that new product? And can you pay yourself? Sometimes the answer isn't determined by whether the opportunity is good. It's determined by whether the business has enough cash to support that opportunity. And here's another part of cash flow that really doesn't get talked about enough. Cash gives you options. When your business has healthy cash reserves, you can make decisions from a position of strength and confidence. You can take advantage of opportunities that come your way. You can negotiate better, and you can survive the slow months. You can replace that equipment that unexpectedly broke. You can invest in something that will help your business grow. But most importantly, you can sleep at night because you're not worrying about payroll. Financial stress follows you home. And anyone who's ever owned a business knows exactly what I'm talking about. It's very difficult to completely turn off the part of your brain that's thinking payroll is Friday. That invoice is due. Sales were slow this week. We have inventory coming. How are we going to cover everything? That will keep you awake at night. Cash reserves create breathing room for you, and breathing room helps you to make better decisions. So here's 5 habits of healthy cash flow. So let's get practical. These 5 habits, I believe every small business owner should develop if they want to build a financially healthy business. And none of these require you to become an accountant. These are simple. They require you to start just paying attention to your cash flow. So habit number 1 is know your numbers. Now that sounds really obvious, but you would be surprised at how many entrepreneurs don't really know their numbers. They know whether sales feel good. They know roughly how much is in the bank, but they couldn't tell you their gross margin. They don't know their monthly fixed expenses. They don't know their net profit. They don't know what their bills are coming over the next 30 days will be. And I've learned that avoiding the numbers doesn't make financial problems disappear. It just means that you discover them later. And at a minimum, I believe every business owner should know how much cash is currently available, what does it cost to operate the business from month to month, so each month's cost, what is your gross margin, and what is your actual profit? What large expenses are coming, and what financial obligations have I already committed my business to? You don't need to memorize every number, but you need to know how to find these numbers. You need to know how you can get to them quickly, because if you're making decisions without understanding your numbers, you're essentially flying your business blind. And I know that sometimes people avoid their finances because they're afraid of what they're going to find. I know I did, but I've learned the number is the number, whether you look at it or you don't. Looking at it at least gives you the opportunity to do something about it. And that is empowering. It gives you empowerment. So habit number 2 is to forecast ahead. So one of the biggest changes I've made when I'm thinking about money is learning to think forward instead of only looking backwards. So financial statements tell you what happened, but cash flow forecasting helps you think about what's going to happen. So start looking ahead 30, 60, and 90 days, and then ask yourself, what expenses are coming? When is payroll due? When is rent? When are taxes due? When are there going to be large inventory payments coming? And do we have a large annual insurance bill maybe coming up? Maybe we're heading into a slower season. We need to plan for that. So, or are we heading into like the holidays where we have to buy significantly more inventory? So we need to figure out what cash will we need to support all of these things. And this doesn't have to be incredibly complicated. You don't have to make a spreadsheet, but you can start very simply by writing down the money coming in and the money going out and when it's happening. And what's the projected balance look like from day to day? The purpose isn't to predict the future perfectly, because you won't be able to. but it helps you see potential problems before they become cash flow emergencies. Because a cash shortage you see 60 days in advance gives you some options and it gives you time to plan ahead. But when you have a cash flow problem the day that payroll is due, you don't have time to plan or make any changes. So habit 3 is building a cash reserve. And this is not exciting. This is not an Instagram post that I'm going to make that says, hey, guess what, guys? I now have $30,000 of cash reserve in the bank. It's not sexy, but building a cash reserve might be one of the most valuable things you ever do for your business. A cash reserve gives you that breathing room. And you don't have to build it overnight. You can maybe start small. Maybe your first goal is enough cash to cover one payroll and then 1 month of operating expenses. Then gradually you build from there. The exact amount your business needs will depend on your industry, seasonality, your expenses, and your risk. But the principle is universal to any business. You just need to build in some margin because things are going to happen. Think of it like an emergency fund for when sales are slow, when a shipment gets delayed, when you don't get a customer payment on time, or you get an unexpected tax bill. An opportunity might come along that requires an investment, and if you have cash reserves, it can turn an emergency into just an inconvenience. And that's a very different way to run a business. So the 4th habit is be intentional with your inventory. This one is tough. And this is especially important for product-based businesses. Inventory can quietly consume enormous amounts of cash. And I understand why. I have this problem because I love buying. Buying is exciting. New products are exciting. Growth is exciting. You see something and you think, our customers are going to love this, so you order it. And then you order something else. And then you order something else. And suddenly you have thousands or tens of thousands of dollars of money just sitting in inventory. And I've learned that more inventory doesn't necessarily mean more sales. Sometimes it means more cash is just sitting on the shelves. So ask yourself, how quickly is my inventory turning over? Figure out what are your best sellers, and then also figure out what doesn't move. And are we buying based on data and numbers, or are we buying based on our emotion? Are we bringing in too many products? How much cash is currently tied up in our slow-moving inventory that's just sitting around? Inventory has an opportunity cost, and every dollar sitting in a product that isn't selling is a dollar that you could be using somewhere else. So buying strategically isn't just a merchandising decision, it's a cash flow decision. Okay, habit 5 is price for sustainability. This is one I see entrepreneurs struggle with all the time. We're afraid to charge too much. We're worried that customers will look at our products and say no. And we're looking at our competitors and we're trying to base our pricing on what feels comfortable instead of what the business actually needs to be successful. Your pricing has to support the business that you're trying to build. They have to help cover everything. They have to cover payroll, rent, marketing, packaging, shipping, technology that you bring into your business, returns that will happen, customer service, future growth, and yes, your paycheck as a business owner. Your business is supposed to cover everything. And there's nothing noble about building a business that serves everyone except for the person who owns it. Healthy pricing allows you to provide better products, hire good people, create better experiences, and continue serving your customers for years to come. It's not greed, it's sustainability. A business that doesn't generate enough margin eventually runs out of options. So here's a couple common cash flow mistakes that I've made myself. And these can really get your business into trouble. The first is growing too quickly. So growth requires cash and more employees and more inventory, more space, more marketing, more equipment. And sometimes rapid growth can actually create a cash crisis. And that's why bigger isn't automatically better. Healthy growth is better. So another mistake is confusing sales with profit. We talked about this earlier. You have a great month and you might think, woohoo, I've got money, yay. So you spend. But then the bills associated with generating those sales, generating that revenue, come and you realize I'm in trouble. So almost every business has rhythms. You're going to have strong months. You're going to have slow months. You know that January is historically slow. So December's cash flow needs to help support January. We see this all the time in my business. So the money that you get in December might feel like yours and feel great, but you realize that you need to save that for January. Don't avoid these types of problems. Avoidance makes more stress, not less. Because cash flow problems are going to begin long before they become obvious in your business. And the earlier that you see the problem, you're going to have more options. Okay, so I want you to do one simple thing for yourself, one practice you can start immediately. And I call it the CEO money meeting. Once a week, preferably at the beginning of the week, schedule 30 minutes with yourself. Put it on your calendar. Treat it like it's an actual meeting. Show up for it. And during that meeting, review 7 really important numbers. How much cash is available right now? What money is expected to come in this week? What bills are coming due? How are our sales trending? Are there upcoming inventory needs? And what marketing investments are planned? And number 7, what financial decisions need to be made? And that's it. 30 minutes. You don't need to solve every problem during that meeting, but the purpose is to get awareness. Because when you're aware of what's happening financially, you can make decisions earlier and with more confidence. Here's what I think happens when entrepreneurs develop this habit. Money becomes less emotional, and instead of reacting to your bank balance, you start managing your business more strategically. Instead of, oh my gosh, this bill is coming, and having all this anxiety, you knew it was coming and you're ready for it. Instead of, I think we can afford this new thing or inventory, you will know whether or not you can actually afford it. And instead of thinking, sales were amazing this month, so let's spend, you can say, sales were amazing, so now let's decide where that cash needs to go. It's a completely different way to look at your finances and to lead. So here's the bigger lesson and what I wish that I understood earlier as a business owner. Financial discipline doesn't restrict your business. It actually creates more freedom. And knowing your numbers isn't about being afraid to spend money. It's about knowing when spending money makes sense. A healthy business should invest. It should take calculated risks. It should hire the right people. It should do marketing. It should innovate. It should grow. But those decisions become much more powerful when they're made intentionally instead of reactively. And ultimately, that's what cash flow management is all about. It's not about hoarding money. It's about creating enough financial stability that you can continue to build a business that you love. Because we're not trying to build businesses that simply survive this month. We're trying to build businesses that are still here 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and maybe 20 years. Businesses that create jobs for people, businesses that serve customers, and businesses that give owners choices, businesses that are truly worth building. Okay, so here is the Builders Challenge for the week. It is, I want you to schedule your first CEO money meeting with yourself. Or maybe if you have someone who takes care of your books or someone who helps you as like your CFO, include them. But during this meeting, I want you to write down your current available cash, your fixed monthly expenses, your 3 largest upcoming expenses, and finally, one decision that you have been avoiding. And maybe that's raising your prices. Maybe it's reducing expenses. Maybe it's dealing with slow inventory. Maybe it's looking at your profit and loss statement, which everyone should have and know how to read. Maybe it's building your cash reserve. Maybe it's deciding whether you can afford that next hire. So whatever it is, I want you to write it down. And then I want you to identify one action that you can take this week to improve your financial position. Not 10, just one thing. Because clarity is going to help you create confidence. And these small, consistent financial decisions are going to compound over time. So thanks for spending your part of your day with me here on the Worth Building podcast. If today's episode helped you think differently about the money in your business, I'd love for you to share it with another entrepreneur, especially someone who's having great sales, but still wondering where is all of the money actually going? And if that's you, Remember that you're not necessarily doing something wrong, but it's probably time to look beyond your revenue, to know your numbers, to look ahead and build some margin. Make intentional decisions because healthy businesses aren't built on sales alone. They're built on the decisions we make with the money those sales create. So until next time, keep leading with intention, keep learning, and keep building something worth building. Bye for now.